Hi. Can you hear me? Does it work? Yeah, I guess. Please interrupt me if there is something you cannot leave. Like there will be a Q&A time at the end, but if there is something that doesn't let you leave and you want to scream like, "No, you're wrong" or something, do this. But well, just make sure we can get the Łukasz to get mic to you. But we'll do that. Okay, just to start with, I need to put this on. Yeah. So. Few just small things about me. There's a reason why Photoshop is that expensive. If you see the difference, that's it. It should be expensive. I'm a strategic consultant, agile coach, trainer. That's beautiful. These things mean nothing. Nobody knows. That's cool. And I used to be product owner, scrum master, project manager, developer, and you can see 3 dots at the end. That's a bit of nostalgia in there. That's how it works. I hate running, though we'll get to running later on. And I do it pretty frequently. Even though I hate it, really, that's ridiculous. And well, you know, some people say that running is the best way to make you lose weight. Well, nope, doesn't work. You can say there will be a YouTube video of an example. No, it doesn't work. And I'm a Stoic and essentialist, which I mean like actual philosophies. But we'll get to that later on. And however weird that sounds, I'm author of Failed Agile Transformations. Though it's only a book, you can get it for free. So, moving on. Yeah, one more important thing. Why do I look like a truck driver in the 80s movie? Ever heard of that? Yeah, if there is some guy here in this room that had no blood check like in last year or 2 years, then you might die of negligence soon. Well, that happens. Don't do that. Don't die in a stupid way. So, moving on. Does anybody here work in an agile business? Please raise your hand. Okay. Or knows a business that is agile? Yeah. There are a few. Okay. So now I want you to answer one question, but please answer it like deep within. Don't speak out loud because it might be a bit embarrassing later on. Okay. So about this business. It might be yours or some other that you know. How do you know they are agile? Or your company that you work in is agile? What's the reason to tell you that? And to give there are several reasons that could be categorized in using tool known from politics and psychiatry and Shrek the movie, which is Onion. So, the first level of answer is that there are some tools. And on one conference, I actually got this leaflet saying we are agile because we use Jira. That was interesting. And it's the easiest thing to copy because, well, if you want to become agile, then what is the first thing you do? The very first. Buy a ton of those yellow post-it notes in a million different colors that man cannot identify. But, well, just get a million of them, and if you get these boards hanging across the corridors, then you can clearly say the company is agile. Or you can go expensive and buy Jira, and that's it. That's agile, because, well, that's what agile companies do, right? So that's one reason that you can answer. Second are the practices. And practices are things like, say, Scrum or Kanban, all these funny processes that we work with. And that's basically where most people stop, like their level of answer. Like, yeah, we are agile because we do Scrum. That makes sense, right? Scrum, agile, kind of. But there's another level, which would be principles. And funny thing is that these are like things that if we are doing Scrum, then we actually finish things within the sprint. If we are doing Kanban, we are actually measuring stuff and we are making sure that the WIP limits, work in progress limits, are really under control and we really care about them. And we work to shorten lead times. Actively, we actually do this. And not many, really, in my experience, not many companies does that. That it's very typical. For instance, in Scrum, to have the testing phase in another sprint. Like there are people that actually advocate this, that in first sprint we develop and then we test in second, and apparently it's supposed to make sense. Well, okay. So, let's go level up. above the principles. And above principles, there are values. And yeah, there are no Scrum values, but I really don't want anybody to have this automated thinking that Scrum is Agile and Agile is Scrum, and it's like equal things. It's not. Here for values, the one that is most important for me, at least as I see Agile, is trust. Though it's a tricky thing with trust, because if I ask you, do you trust me? It's a valid answer. Both yes and no are valid answer, but it's like a false dichotomy. There are more than two options here. It's not binary thing. Because there is this thing like, no, I don't trust you. Like we say, well, I distrust you, I don't believe things you say, you're not trustworthy. Fine. And there is this part when, yeah, I'll trust you. And there's this whole twilight zone in between, which is like kind of, well, yeah, I do mind about you. I do not wish you to die in a fire. Yeah, this kind of things, like all in the between. Because that actual trust is when we are allowing ourselves to show weakness to others and are not afraid to do so. It's, we tend to perceive this whole twilight zone as being trust as well, and it's not. And this part that requires learning and allows to learn from mistakes is allowing ourselves to make mistakes and talk about them openly so that others can help us make those mistakes disappear first, and second, make sure other people in company don't do the same mistakes. That's trust. And the final layer would be the mindset. Mindset is a beautifully coaching, consulting word that's also close to meaningless nowadays, as Agile, the word. By mindset here, for me at least, it's the moment when you start growing some humility. And humility as in, yeah, I might not know everything. And as a team member, yeah, we might not know the best solution, and as a customer client going to the team, I might not be sure of what I really want to achieve. And allowing everybody to say, yeah, that's okay. It is okay to not know things. And the moment when we think or say that, yeah, we have all the answers, it's like the ultimate lie. No, we don't. Even though, for many reasons, which are like deeply psychological, like not losing face and so on, we will, in many cases, we'll just claim just for the sake of it that, yeah, that's what I know, and that's what I want, and I know it for sure. Funny thing about these 5 levels, well, is anybody on level 5 or 4 here? Mindset? Values? There are some actual hands in the air. Okay, so there's progress in Agile in Poland. Good. Like last year, I got nobody. So, funny thing. These tools, practices, they are hugely visible. If the company is using Jira, you can see it. If they have millions of post-its on the wall, you can see them. Clearly, you just walk into the room and, yeah, they're doing Agile. You can see. These kind of like mindset, values, principles, not really visible. Well, principles might be tangible because you could get some better business benefits out of them, but it's not visible. Tangible and visible are different things. And another part to it is that these are pretty much worthless. You don't need them. You don't need Jira or Post-it to be an Agile business. And you don't need Scrum or Kanban or doing these things to be Agile. Like you could do perfectly Agile project using PMI or Prince2. All the mechanisms are there already, and were there even before this. They started adding the Agile parts because everybody has to do something about it. And then we got into Agile PM and this add-on to PMI. And you could, with tools you could do this in Excel, this you could do in PMI. There's no problem. But this, it's really invaluable because it's gonna give you all the benefits It's gonna make your business more resilient, and it's gonna make your business thrive, even though you don't really have to use all these. Okay, so that, but there's this question like, how come? Because people talk about values, and they're like 2/3 of Agile world is this fancy schmancy things about soft and trust and building connections and all the coaching boring things. So there are like 3 levels of knowledge that we can gain, and the easiest one is practice. And do you know this painting? Does anybody know this painting? Or the building in there? That's opera in Vienna, if I remember correctly. What do you think of it? Do you like it? Like it's a good one? Decent enough? Maybe not hang it in your living room, but somewhere, yeah, it's printable, right? You wouldn't throw it in the fire. You know who's the author of this? Who painted this? Yes, Adolf Hitler. He knew all the rules. It's like, technically speaking, it's a valid painting. You've got all the shadows and perspective there. You've got people drawn in proper way. That, yeah, it's a valid painting. But the reason why he didn't go to the academy to study it further is that because he just did that. He learned to paint. He didn't have talent to do that, sadly. And everybody of us could learn to paint like this. Though you know, I wouldn't brag about this like I'm gonna paint as good as Hitler does. Well, so then we get to the second level, which is the challenge part, and that's gonna be a huge embarrassment to me. But as I got into running a few years ago, it's worth to add that I did like no physical activity before, like none ever, like not even in school. I did everything not to go to these boring classes. So, as I started running, I started doing basically doing the Hitler stuff with running, which was like, okay, so people run. So if I want to run, I will do the same. Like it's a practice. They run 5 kilometers. I will run 5 kilometers. It's easy. Well, how hard can it be? Just go and run, right? And then you start. I didn't start challenging it until 2.5 years ago, and you can see my embarrassing photo on the left, which was on my birthday 2 years ago. There was this 5K run somewhere in one of parks around here, and I came in last, like not in last in category or something, last, the last person to finish, and there were people 60 or 70 years old running as well. My time was like 42 minutes, 43 for 5K. You know, it's some people like people taller than me can basically walk the same distance in the same time. And the best thing, I actually got a prize for this. So I was called, and it's like persistence. So yeah, he made it anyway. And they did not notice it was my birthday, and everybody started singing "Happy Birthday" to me. That was fun. But then, as I got to working with my actual trainer, I thought, yeah, that makes no sense, but still I want to do this running thing. She told me, like, you should start running less. You should start running slower to stabilize the way your heart works. I was like, okay, but like, why? Well, I need to run fast so that I run fast, right? It makes sense. Well, no, not for training. And that's the part when just following the practice as we see others is not enough. And then you have to take a step back. Okay, so apparently we need to do things differently. And it's, here finishing half marathon this year, and still embarrassing photo in many aspects. But anyway, I was 2 minutes a kilometer faster doing half marathon than I was doing this thing. So I guess it works. And the good example would be like car racing. When you see those cars that are going in a very spectacular way, slides and so on, everybody loves them. They never got good times. Those cars that just go smoothly without skidding, without all the smoke, they do it properly. But they get good times. So the next level for which sadly I don't have some embarrassing photos. It's philosophy. So it's like, okay, now it's time to start living this thing, like living the agile thing, and living the running thing, or living whatever is your thing. And the most important aspect of it is de-learning stuff, or maybe unlearning stuff would be better expression. So that, okay, we were told that these things work, and they seemed to work for us for a while, but maybe now we should start doing things differently, because the way we did things before, it worked, but it was back then, and we were a different company or a different team or a different person. And maybe now, as we get further, those things make no sense anymore. And we should start challenging them and start thinking about them. But it's not that easy. It's very hard, because if things work, then just don't touch them, right? That's what we do. It works. Let's not, don't ask, don't tell, well, what happens, it's because of the way we learn. So, imagine you are living in, say, 15th century, and you are a blacksmith. So there are very simple rules to being a blacksmith. At age or seven or so, you are being sent to forge. You became a trainer, and then you become apprentice, and then you become master. And you're like 30 years old, and only then you get to mastery. It's very simple. So you get to this mental model, which is, okay, I'm a blacksmith, and my goal is to make horseshoes, or swords, or whatever else, like pots. That's the idea. And based on that, you create decision-making rules, which are like, okay, so I'm making this horseshoe, and now I have to hit it with a hammer from the right. And if it goes too far to the left, then I have to hit it with a bit less power from the other side. And that's how it works. That's you make decisions. So you make the decision, I will hit it with a hammer, action happens, and then you get feedback. The loop goes on. And we learn doing projects the same way, and doing Scrum, doing all the Agile things. So say for traditional project management, well, my mental model is, well, I am here to deliver projects. And then there are some decision-making rules. So if we are not in scope anymore, then we should get like some more budget or more time, or just do the thing that everybody does, which is cut on quality. Okay, not typical, and we go along with this. And the same goes for Scrum, for Kanban. Okay, we are here to work in sprints and to deliver potentially shippable increments. Well, now it's just shippable increments, because the practice is that they're never shippable until the end of the project. And okay, and there's a bit of a problem with this, because as I said, like being a blacksmith in 15th century, basically what you do throughout your life is being a blacksmith. And throughout 60 years or 70, however long you live, you do things the same way. So the process doesn't change. And now the world is accelerating. Really, things change fast, really fast. So basically, I'm pretty sure that like in 10 years, nobody here will work in the same profession as we are. And like in 2 or 3 years, nobody will work using the same tools and the same processes. And back then, people had a lifetime to learn. That's the cost of industrial revolution, which our bodies, like our brains, our way of thinking, didn't get too used to yet. But because we want to have these, follow the rules, it is expected from us, then there is this idea that you can master everything in 2 days. Has anybody been like on CSM course, Certified Scrum Master? Yeah, it's 2 days, and after 2 days, you become master of something. And the worst thing that can happen, and it happened to me, sadly, was that I believed that. Like, yeah, now I know. Basically, because I learned like Prince 2 in 5 days, seems to work. And then we get into this thinking, okay, so we can learn this in 2 days, and it's fine. That's going to be it. And good trainers will tell you that well, it's just like, 5% of what's in the trade, or less. You just know the mechanics. But trainers won't tell you that. And the good trainers have a harder way of selling their stuff. But what is the result of that? It's another embarrassing photo of me, which is my old LinkedIn photo. Sadly, it's not a joke. And then you get all those certificates listed below, like CSM, PSM, P2F, WTF, PSPO, and so on. And so you get this factory of people. There are those factories of people, of certificates, that create people that get the idea that they might know things right. And what's not taught on this is that there is this tiny arrow missing here. And what's pictured right now is a double loop learning model. I hugely recommend you to look it up, double loop learning model, because it's like the way to win in business or in combat, basically. Pretty universal rule. So once we get this feedback, say that, this project is going, this project is going bad, and we are likely to not finish in time, then maybe we should also change our mental model so that, is the goal of this thing that we're doing here delivering project, or do we want to deliver value? And then we get here. And also then whole thing would evolve. So we are not stuck anymore in this thinking of, so we are in this particular place here, and because we are doing Scrum, then, we need to work in iterations, and we need to deliver every 2 weeks. And it's not stated like explicitly in the Scrum, but for good reasons. But why would you wait for 2 weeks? And the most efficient teams, walk away from Scrum very fast, because it makes no sense to wait that long for validation of what they did. Basically makes no sense. But to get there, you need to stop thinking about, we are doing Scrum, or doing a Kanban, or doing whatever kind of, but so how we deliver value? And then you get to some interesting points, like first would be, do we need to deliver software at all? Because if we can do what our clients want without delivering any software, then it's like the biggest win you could get. You have no technical depth, and though there is like a caveat is that then being a software house, you have no work for your people, and then they have mortgages to pay. And kids, and Christmas is coming, and things get complicated. Second thing is, so if we are working with Scrum and want to deliver faster, what can we do about it? And do we have some continuous integration environment? Is it robust? How fast can our people get any kind of feedback about the way they do things? And the faster they can get it, is the better, because that's actually like the point of Agile. Does anybody has idea why do we have this Agile thing? React to change. Pretty good. Deliver value quicker and validate ideas quicker. So that, what's the point? So you can adjust the plan to achieve better results. So that the customer is happy. So that he pays money. That's the point. That's the point. And you all laugh, but it's very easy to forget that. The whole point of Agile as it is, let's kill some myths. Agile didn't start with Scrum Guide. Agile didn't start with Agile Manifesto. Funnily enough, I'm pretty sure that some people working in Agile have never seen Agile Manifesto. Not to mention the second page. Who has seen second page? Wow, there's progress in this as well. What is on the second page? Yes, 12 principles. Okay. So it didn't start with this as well. It didn't start with this article in 80s, new product development game. It didn't even start with this thinking. There's this guy that, Brooks. You all know Brooks' law. It says that 9 women will not deliver a child in 1 month, which is knowledge that most project managers never get somehow. But they might not be very practical with 9 women. It didn't start back then. It didn't even started started way before computers were. The truth is that it all started in the army when some guys figured out that, following a plan might not work. And one of generals was said quite famously that no plan ever survived first encounter with the enemy, which is true. And no project ever survived. No project plan ever survived first day of work. It always goes down at the very beginning, and then it's a downhill. So the reason, the actual reason for why do we play with this agile thing is because shit happens. It's inevitable. It will happen, and the only thing that matters about it is what can we do about it. And which basically the first sentence is a Stoic philosophy in a nutshell. That's just it. Things happen, and it's very typical for people, which we transfer to our workplace and our organizations as well. It's very typical to fall in this trap of, let's pretend it didn't happen. Let's just carry on. This second part of the sentence, what we can do, how we react to it, is hugely psychological concept of locus of control. It says where is the entity that controls my behavior, or our team behavior, or our company behavior, or our country behavior, whatever you call it. It scales beautifully. Because if you have external locus of control, then it means that somebody forces you to do something. And even on personal level, it's there's this saying death and taxes, right? 2 things that are certain. This statement is invalid. Taxes are not certain. It's a matter of choice. I can pay taxes and live up pretty happily, live happily ever after, or I can make a decision to not pay them, and then I might have some adventures in the shower room, picking up a soap or something, seeing world from outside the bars for a while or years or whatever. But it's an option, and person with internal locus of control will say, I make a choice to pay taxes because I know it's smart. Could be. Taxes are not the best example, but still. The same goes for teams. And you get this retrospectives with teams, and people are saying, this client is bad, or this client is irritating, or the way they communicate is frustrating, and so on and so on. And it's all they, them. The outside world is all at blame. Because the environment, blah, 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 blah. All this. And, in team that internalizes it, says okay, so fact of life is that this communication with this client is frustrating. Great. What can we do about it to make it better? And it's the only thing, because if anybody here tried to convince clients to communicate in different ways, saying the way Steven, the way you send these emails to the whole team, don't do that because that frustrates them. I did it once. That was a very stupid idea. Because then the response to my boss was from the client, which bypassed me, was, communication with Łukasz is frustrating. And then I was in trouble, just because I tried to change somebody else's behavior, which never happens. So that's about internalizing, very important. Second, then it would be good to focus on the most important action. And that's essentialism as a philosophy, also in one sentence. That's it. And I wanted to ask, is there anybody that here that knows like the key project in the company, the one that's key, the most important? One person. Nice. Yeah, every project is most important. And okay, funny thing, you know the word priority, right? So the word priority, as it is, began its existence in English language in 1500s. 15th century, 1400s. And it didn't have plural form. It was just priority. It was the priority, and you knew it. Plural form, priorities, started its existence in 20th century. So for 600 years, it was known that if it's a priority, then yeah, it matters. And it's important. We should really focus on this one thing. 600 years later, industrial evolutions, focus on efficiency and so on, the Taylorism, blah, blah, blah. You get to the point like, yeah, so these are our top priorities. And that's already a huge trap. Because if these are our top priorities, then there are other priorities as well. And you know you're in trouble. And the key thing is to, okay, what is that thing that we can do like this one thing, so that we don't, because otherwise you will do what, we do in our private lives, and we basically make a millimeter of progress in 1,000 directions. And it gets us nowhere. And, I highly encourage you to go, like, in your company, ask your boss or whoever, like, because most of you don't know it, like, okay, so what is the key? What's the key project here? What's, like, the most important thing? Maybe how can I help with that? Or, yeah, it would be good. And it's also, like, sparks thinking, because you will often notice that your boss doesn't know as well. And then things get funny. But only do this like if you are in good relations and feel safe about your workplace and so on. Okay, so a bit more formal definition would be like, Agile is a set of practices and principles built around mindset aimed at allowing entities to flexibly adapt to evolving market reality. Whew. That's a long sentence. But it's kind of where I got after like years of doing these things wrong, because I mentioned I was a Scrum Master. I was the worst Scrum Master I knew. And now, like, people keep asking me, especially people from outside IT, like, okay, so what's Agile? And it's, does anybody have a simple answer? Well, not this one right now, but, you know, there's this, I remember being a Scrum Master product owner and going to my family, to my parents, and they ask, yeah, so what do you do at work? I'm like, being a Scrum Master. And well, I'm this servant leader of a team, so you're their boss? Well, no, and you see where it's going. And then it's going to the point of just going, yeah, I'm a project manager. Whatever, yeah. Oh, yeah, so you manage projects, yeah. So this is the answer that I got after like a few years of doing things wrong. And important things here, like set of practices and principles. Basically, there are just 3 most important ones that can be done anywhere, like any kind of business. First is transparency and visibility. Like, do we know things that we are doing? Even at home, like I have my Trello for stuff that I'm doing, Trello board, like a Kanban board, so that I don't miss things. And in our company, do we have some place where those things that we are doing, or as a team, or as a team member, do I have this one place in which things are visible? Second practice and principle, very important, prioritization. Yeah, it would be good to know the most important one, but also like have some order. And then once you get all those things visible and start prioritizing, you are getting to a point where you think like, okay, these 5 things at the bottom, I don't think I want to do them. Like I have this book that I wanted to read on my like personal Trello, but yeah, I don't think it's a good book. And just throw it away or give to somebody that I don't like. you see, that allows us to reduce the spread of our willpower, of spread of our priorities. And the third practice that also can be applied anywhere to anything is shortening lead times. What you said, I think, about this getting faster feedback from faster validation. Yes, that's the point of not failing down with companies. That's just the point. Because the sooner we know that things don't work, the sooner we can change it. And if we have project that is span across 2 years and invest a lot of resources and time, because, well, if it's for 2 years, then you will invest a lot of time and resources. And then after 2 years, learning that it makes no sense, that's painful. And if you split it, smaller parts, push them to market as fast as possible, then the sooner you know that, okay, we might want to change that direction here, there. Same goes for the team, same goes for life. And a very good tip that I could give you about this scaling, because, some projects are just big, right? And we get into this thinking, okay, so there was this big project in old ways that we had 70 people working on, and now we are doing Agile, so we need some very elaborate scaling framework, some SAFe, LESS, Nexus, whatever, to work on it, right? That's what we do. And then we apply the same mental model. Remember the double loop? So we apply the same mental model of, okay, so this project is big, so we need big team. The same. Which doing it the Agile way, like proper Agile scaling, is scaling the project down. Okay, so how fast can we get anything with this one or just two teams that can be dropped on some staging or production environment, so that we know if it works or not? How soon can we get this? A small team, smaller chunk. Sad thing is that if you were to do everything, then it would be more costly, for sure. But then I'm pretty sure you wouldn't do everything that was in the initial scope this way. Going further, build around mindset aimed. Yeah, just build around mindset aimed. Mindset is this philosophy, basically. But philosophy, as I shown on the previous slide, philosophy as in sense of Stoicism and Essentialism, but in a very ancient way, funnily enough. Because has anybody here had an opportunity to talk with some modern day philosopher? Okay, I had. That was a nightmare. It felt like going to a shrink. Because I just went like, so I need to change my life. Yeah, he's a philosopher. He should know, I guess. And then it started like, okay, so let's first define I. Okay, 1 hour later, and there. So, going back to your question, so want to. Do you really want? Like, is there something pushing you? Like, why do you want it? I was like, okay, and then change and my life. You see, that was a interesting process. And what's really not known is that ancient philosophers were extremely practical. You went to this guy, say to Aristotle, and ask him, dear Aristotle, I want to change my life. And he just look at you and say, well, wake up earlier. Make up your bed. Once you're done eating, wash your bowl. Funnily enough, these are very valid tips, like for life, making life better. Just these 3 things. And the third one is, I'm actually, this washing a bowl is essential of Buddhism, but that's very practical philosophy. So, allowing entities is why do I put entities here? As I said, these 3 principles and practices that I mentioned at the beginning, they work everywhere. They work on like personal level, team level, company level, department level, whatever you want. Just do these things and they will work, just like that. And adapt to evolving market reality. That's the point about shortening lead times. That's the point about not learning after 2 years that it made no sense. Like, I am into running. As I said, I might go for ultra marathon one day, but I will never be very fast. Just the way I'm built. I'm like a heavy frame guy. pretty sure I would be better at boxing, but I don't like getting my head beaten up. So if I now try to aim at running like extremely fast or like going for some Olympic level, whatever, well, technically, probably it might be possible if I invest a lot of time, but I don't want to learn after 10 years, being almost 50, that, yeah, I'm not gonna be fast. If I can learn about it like in 2 years or 1 year or something and just run for leisure and for thinking, that's a good thing. And the same goes for the way your team works and the way your company delivers software. You don't want to learn after 2 years that things make no sense. Basically, if you can learn this after 1 month, then it's a huge victory. Though you will always fall in a trap that we all fell into, which is sunken costs. Some of you might have been in this project kind of like, yeah, it doesn't seem to make sense anymore, but yeah, we've invested so much. And it's the same thing, like I actually recall myself thinking one day, like, I invested in this relationship so much. Yeah, it sucks. But that's the way people work. Because if we have put a lot of time and our effort into something, then we feel attached to it. Even though it might make no sense anymore. And now I'm seriously starting to reconsidering my running thing, but, well. So that's it. That's Agile as would make sense. And not the one that's, it's clearly not the one in the manifesto. Because the problem with manifesto is that it says it's really, what's the name of Agile manifesto? Like, what's the actual proper name? Agile manifesto for software development. So it started there, and right now we have a huge set of practices and so on that could be applied anywhere, but we are thinking in this mindset of, yeah, that's Agile, that's what those guys that down in the basement, that's what they do. And so we get this huge company that only does Agile here, but like by osmosis, everything is also Agile apparently, somehow. Even though no other practice is used. Moving on. Do you have any questions? Agile is that's this typical trap. Agile is not for software. You can think that, but you can also do Agile in construction as well, because you have many steps of the process, right? So it's not like we only deliver value at this content creation part. But as you get, I will go for let's go for cars, right? That's hardware. So you have marketing, thinking about, what kind of car would sell here. Then you have R&D designing the car. Then you have some guys like building cars, and then guys selling cars, and so on, right? It is hardware. And you only have those designer guys here doing in some way, but they're working some Agile way or whatever. But at the marketing part, also there is value delivery. And also, the shorter this part could be, the better. But the shorter the loop is, the faster you can change your mind. Mm-hmm. Yeah, car might have not been my best example, I think. But basically, just don't focus on one part, because there's huge project example that I had. There was a consulting company that I did consulting in. That sounds weird, but anyway. And they had very successful transformation to Agile. They got like proper success. So it was like the average time of delivering project went down from 4 months to 2. Textbook. Great win. But as I talk with people like up in the board or so, they said, this Agile thing doesn't work. That was very expensive, and that was a mistake. And I was like, wow, you've got like the best you could get. But then, Okay, so how the project looked. So first, there was half a year of managerial thinking. Starting, let's have an idea of the project. Okay, let's meet in 2 weeks and discuss it. 2 weeks. Okay, so what's the sponsor of the project? Okay, who's the owner of the project? Okay, and now where do we get resources? Oh, no, we have to reallocate resources. And so it went on for half a year. Then there were those 4 months of first 4, then down to 2, of delivery, of creating the project itself, right? That they make it. And then there were 2 months of deployment. That just took that long. So they were right. It made no sense for them, because the thing they should have done to shorten this was to work on these 6 months here. So it's not it's important to step back and see, okay, which parts take more time and how can we make these parts better? Because with these guys, they went out from 12 months to 10, which is no improvement for people. They're like, it's not existing. It's like if nothing has changed. And they are right, and they should have worked first on these guys, because I'm pretty sure managerial meetings could be done like in 1 month or instead of 6. They should have just sit in one place and decide and start with it, instead of doing several meetings. Then maybe shortening this thing in software development or not. So that it's like, don't focus on the sole part of creating something. Just take a step back, see the whole thing, and okay, what can we improve like this? Because the whole process, from inception to being delivered, takes X years or months or so. So what are specific parts that we can work on? That would be like this. Just don't focus on this one part. And even applying these 3 practices of visualization, prioritization, and working on shortening lead times by, work in progress limits, it will work also in hardware development, hardware design.
Further questions?
Okay. Yeah, it's okay to disagree. I might be wrong, Sorry.
You have a question up there?
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
Talking about your one of your first slides, this babushka part, chai part, and you were talking about trust.
Yeah.
2 things. The tools is one of the first things you have in let's say in any regular company, this Agile stuff, blah, blah, blah. However, what will be not the right way, but let's say a way of everybody get to the mindset. Because it's very easy, I'm the developer, I'm here, and today I get out of this conference and I say, Agile is cool. But what if my project manager don't goes with that? Or, anyone above me goes with that. And then I said, Agile. What a great conference I had with Agile. But bye-bye Agile in my company. And also, let's say, to link in this question is, what about what you said about trust? You say, sure, I will follow my team lead or my project manager till the end of the world, programming-wise. No, not outside the company. And but then, let's say you realize that my superiors, I should be careful with what they tell me and what they don't. Where do you draw the line on trust and all these things you talk about?
So starting with the first question, I guess just starting on yourself, like be the change. It's very Gandhi and so very coachy, but that's just the point. So even if your team or your organization is has not learned, not make a decision for various reasons, and they might be right, like it might work for them for a while, made no decision to move towards Agile, like improving and so on, you can start with yourself, and then after a while, somebody in the team will notice, like, okay, so what's these things you're doing, like with these things with priorities? Okay, somebody will follow up with this. And then after a few months, your team will be visibly more efficient. And then somebody will ask, yeah, okay, so how come this team is that productive? And then it will spill over. Like, don't force anything. That's a very typical mistake that I made as well. Like, okay, so they want to be agile. Yeah, so let's just train them in Scrum, everybody. Pfft. And just force it and let them do. No. It works way better with evolution. So just start with yourself, then your team, then maybe department and so on. It will go. It will grow. And though there are limits to it, that will kind of touch your second question. Limits are based on organizational culture. And culture of organization is always defined by mindset and, well, psychology of the guy at the top. Because the person at the top will have some expectations, and all their subordinates will do everything to fulfill them, and it will scale. So if you have some, say, I'm not saying that anybody has that, but just an example, theoretical. But if the CEO of your company is psychopath, then it's gonna be pretty funny to work at, in a way. Like, so everybody will act in a in the same way. So that's there are limits to the culture, to how much it could grow. And about trust, yeah, the most important here is it's Latin used by doctors, which is primum non nocere. So first, make no harm. So stop. It's essential to stop doing things that don't allow team to trust to happen. And all these are described in this 5 dysfunctions of team by Patrick Lencioni. You can just look it up. 5 dysfunctions of team. Just don't do these things, and it will work. And also start with yourself or with the team, whatever. But also start small. And the tricky part is that the best way for others to trust us is to trust them first, even if they might not be there yet. So just be open, and that's tricky because we really don't ever know how they will react, and they might it might work, but they might also use it against us, because being open and trusting is becoming vulnerable. Not everybody wants to do that, and that's okay. So, does it answer your questions? Thank you. Any more? Yeah, we have 2 here.
Okay, so generally, first I would like to say that the presentation was great. I really like the philosophy stuff and the school.
Philosophy stuff.
I had this thought about naming, because you mentioned yourself, for example, that Kanban and Scrum is not the same as Agile, in your opinion, or that people always think about making software when talking about Agile, right? And my thought is that perhaps there's a problem with naming, that Agile, as we know it right now, started with the manifesto, right? So it was when the name, let's say Agile, was introduced in our field. And now, for example, from your presentation, seems that the term is like expanding. So it's not only software, but also how the whole company works. So I think that I would like to ask you if you agree that perhaps we should find a different name for that, because this may be the source of the confusion, that when someone says Agile, we think about software, but now the term applies to much more. So maybe we could use a different name to talk about those processes and those mindset and values that you were talking about. Maybe it's the problem of naming.
Yeah, it is, and there actually is a name for that. It's called business agility.
Oh.
And if you wanna just because like I'm pretty sure everybody here is on LinkedIn. Just follow 2 guys. One would be Adrian Lander, and second Al Shalloway. Those guys, like, even reading their comments, you can get pretty much the impact that I've gotten. and into their thinking. And Al Shalway also writes a great blog. You can look him up or ask me afterwards. I'll send you the contact.
Cool, thanks. And if I may, just a second part, because you were saying about some military implementation of Agile, and that it's somewhat the beginning.
Yeah.
Could you say something more about that?
In the most standard way. You know the Spartans?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, how Spartans fought. Everybody had a shield, and here you had some sword or whatever you used to kill any others. And they stood in line, next to each other. So the guy on the right, and few lines of them. And the guy on the right here, that sucked to be here, because he wasn't protected from the right side, right? And every other Greek nation fought the same way. So there were those two walls that came together, and they pushed each other, and usually Spartans won, so they pushed the other, they fell down, and they killed them. That's how it worked. For centuries, it worked this way. But somehow, Greece is known as Greece, not Sparta. It was, I think, 371 BC, Battle of Leuctra, where there were other Greeks, which I'm making the story shorter, but other Greeks, the Thebans, used phalanx that was twice as deep. Nobody ever thought of that before. And the Spartan plan that worked brilliantly for centuries, just push them over and kill them, stopped working because they couldn't push through wall that was twice as thick. And then it started the idea of, well, we have this plan, and so what? Well, the enemy is not willing to go along with the plan, and they hardly ever do. You can expect some things to happen, but it rarely happens. And they were, like, military was the first area of team thinking and so on, and following and empowerment, all the things that we are now using in IT world hugely. They were first because they were first to realize that plans don't really matter that much, the initial plan that you have. And then things change, and you need to adapt to them.
Yeah, cool. So the whole idea of inspection and adaptation, right?
Yes, for inspect and adapt, there's the Deming circle that we know, plan, do, check, act, very, very industrial. But there is also OODA loop, OODA, which is typically military and also used by some businesses. It's observe, orient, decide, act. Highly recommend learning about this one as well. It changes things. I can also just ask me. I can send you a link to a great article about it.
Cool, thanks.
Okay. We have 1 minute 27 seconds left.
We have time for one last question.
So, question from my side: have you ever observed in your whole career a situation when we have very good agile culture in the organization and we start to lose it? So, like an regression in the agile culture.
Yeah. I guess it's a cultural thing. I've seen that, but it's kind of gets from having no idea why we're doing it. So you launch up the series of coaches and so on, and fire these, and everybody is happy, singing Kumbaya, and it goes like this. Everybody is happy. You build up this great culture, but then because you are just copy-pasting what others do, without thinking why, what's the point, and so on, then this culture will be like a investment bubble. It grows, and then there's this moment, and then somebody is open to the client and say, well, those requirements are not viable, or whatever. Because of Agile, and you should say that. And then some project manager, whoever, account manager, hears that and says, oh, no. You're not supposed to say that these things to our customers, to our clients. Come on. And then it's downhill. Just because people are doing it for wrong reason. And the most typical reason for Agile in software companies is because everybody else is doing it. And then it goes the stupid copy-pasting of, they're doing Scrum, let's do Scrum as well. They're using Jira, let's use Jira as well. And if you do it for a wrong reason, that it will not last. Like if I started doing, I don't know, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu today in the evening somewhere. Well, I would get possibly quite proficient at it, but it wouldn't last because I have no point of fighting other people on the street, I guess. So that it wouldn't last because the reason that the idea would be like it makes a stupid idea if you don't know, if you're doing something and really don't know why, and just because everybody else is doing, it's not gonna last.